Hi everyone, I am back in my stairwell today on my quest to find a space to film where you can't really hear my neighbour's construction work. Fingers crossed. If you're new, my name is Jen. Hi, I'm an author and a book reviewer, and today I wanted to start a new reading vlog. I want to do a series of reading vlogs where I read books recommended by different groups of people, and I use the term people quite loosely here because today we're going to be doing books recommended by algorithms. So I have already done a reading vlog where I read books that other booktubers loved. They weren't actually recommended specifically to me, so I may do another video in the future where booktubers recommend me books personally, because I think that's slightly different. I also want to do a video where I read books recommended by booksellers, and I will be doing a video where I read books recommended by specific authors to me as well. Today we're going to do books recommended by an algorithm, specifically StoryGraph's algorithm. So like lots of people, I moved over from Goodreads to StoryGraph, which is a great way of tracking your reading. It's an independently run Black-owned business, and I just think that they're great. They also provide you with loads of stats. You can import your Goodreads data super easily. Just Google how to do that. It will take you all of 2 minutes. And then they have a recommendation section where their algorithm recommends things that they think you would like. And it seems to be more interesting than other sites that recommend you books by algorithms tend to be. Like, there are books on there I've never heard of, but this video is a test. I've already bought 2 books that have been recommended to me through that algorithm. You can also tailor it, telling it specific things you want, but I'm just going by the "we noticed that these are books that you read, so these are books we think you would like" tab. So the 2 books that I've already bought, let me show you. I've got my computer here, and then I'm gonna go back onto the recommendation page today, screen record, and we can see what else they're recommending. I want to buy 2 more books so that we can read 4 in this video, because I think that would be a good sample. So the 2 books I've already bought, we've got a novella called Itzia by Rios de la Luz, and I've only read the first sentence of the blurb, which is enough for me, which said, "In her debut novella, Rios de la Luz examines the lives of a small family of water witches living near the US-Mexico border." Yes, that sounds great. And the other one that I've bought is a short story collection in translation called The Youngest Doll by Rosario Ferre, translated from the Spanish by Jean Franco. And the first sentence of this blurb says, "A gentle maiden ant who has been victimized for years unexpectedly retaliates through her talent for making life-size dolls filled with honey." Yes, that also sounds great. So those are 2 that I already have. They're in my flat waiting for me to read. Now let me screen record and look at the other things that are being recommended to me. Okay, so at the top here we've got some Toni Morrison, then we've got Shut Up You're Pretty, which is a book I remember people talking about a few years ago. It's a short story collection, I think. The Chosen and the Beautiful. The Terracotta Bride by Zen Cho is a book that I would like to read, but I have searched for it before online and couldn't find it in physical form in the UK, which was slightly frustrating. What Belongs to You by Garth Greenwell is a book that I've looked at before but I'm not interested in, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this cross here at the top, and it says, "Are you sure you don't want this book to show up in your recommendations anymore?" And I say okay, and it learns from that, which is cool. So let us click on something and take a look. What is this book? Tableau. Let's open in a new tab. What other ones do I want to open? Soft Science by Ferre Choi. I already have a collection of poetry of hers on my TBR. Let's look at The Thief. Let's open that in another tab. Ooh, The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida. Let's click on that and have a look at that. Never Have I Ever by Isabel. Yep, I love that cover. Oh, it's horror, it's queer, science fiction short stories. I'm getting good feelings about that one. Radiance by Catherine and Valente. I'm going to click the cross on that one because I tried that one by her and I didn't love it. The Deep is 2 of 6, and this is comics, so let's click no to that one because I haven't read that one before, and then I should be able to refresh this page and probably have more recommendations. Let's look again at Shut Up You're Pretty, because I have considered that one definitely before. And The Chosen and the Beautiful, let's look at that one too. I'm just clicking on everything now. Tropic of Orange by Kamante Yamashita. I do have her book Sensei and Sensibility, which I haven't read yet, so I'm not going to click on that one because I should read that one first. I have never been tempted by Brandon Sanderson, so let's click the cross on that one. I don't really know why that one is appearing there. Oh, and then this one came up, which is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. So it says, this is a gorgeously creepy haunted house tale steeped in Japanese folklore full of devastating twists. I really like the sound of that one. Let's look at the other ones. Okay, so the first one I clicked on was Tableau. It says, epic hike leader tableau short stories weave together the secrets and anxieties of youth, whispering words of solace to a lost generation. Okay, so there's really not much information here. I'm going to say no to this one for now. The Thief, what is this? It says it's a literary crime masterpiece that follows a Japanese pickpocket. It is bleak and oozing existential dread. Now this does sound interesting. However, I do have a few Japanese crime books on my shelf that I haven't read yet, so maybe I should leave that one for another time. The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida. Well, this is about someone who has died by suicide, and I'm not sure that that's something that I'm in the mood for reading right now. Never Have I Ever by Isabel Yap. Spells and stories, urban legends and immigrant tales all gathered together in one fabulous bundle. And as I said, it is horror, queer, science fiction and short stories. So I think this is a contender. I think I'm going to purchase this one. Then we've got Schoolgirl, which is a novella which is from 1933, but I think it also has short stories in it as well. It's by Azuma Dazai, and it's translated by presumably lots of different people. Maybe it's a collection of short stories from their lifetime. Again, not much information on that one. This is Shut Up, You're Pretty, which is again a short story collection about a woman who contemplates her Congolese traditions during a family wedding, a teenage girl looking for happiness inside a pack of cigarettes, a mother reconnecting with her daughter through their shared interest in fish, and a young woman decides to shave her head in the waiting room of an abortion clinic. This one, as I said, I have seen knocking around YouTube before. You know what? Let's just make this vlog more complicated for myself. Let's have 5 books. So we'll have the 2 I already have, and I'm going to purchase a copy of Never Have I Ever, Shut Up, You're Pretty, and Nothing But Blackened Teeth. That's the plan. I will come back to you when books have arrived and I have started reading. Good morning. I didn't get a good night's sleep last night. Can you tell? Sadly, this lack of sleep was not because I was terrified by the first book that I've read in this vlog, which is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. We're not off to a great start, guys. I'm sorry. This novella is definitely trying to be a version of The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and I really enjoyed that book when I read it a couple of years ago. The reason I think that book works so well is because it's a group of strangers who come together to stay in this house that people say is haunted as an experiment organized by a doctor. However, this novella is a group of friends who all know each other, and they've come together right before a wedding to stay at this haunted house in Japan that one of their really rich friends paid for. But the way they interact with each other is not the way that people who've known each other for a really long time do interact. They're kind of still trying to figure each other out and holding each other at a distance. It's almost like it's the first couple of weeks of school or something. Also, they seem to all have slept with each other at various points. So basically, this is like a horror novel written by Sally Rooney, and I know that that will sell it to so many people who are watching, which is absolutely fine. Like, I'm sure loads of people will love this, but I'm just finding it frustrating. The way they interact with each other is unbelievable, over the top. The writing is also over the top. Let me give you an example. Put my husband down, Talia fluted, reaching for her groom-to-be. I can handle it, a snarling comeback without an anchor, in fact. Philip could have held Ferre suspended forever, but he relented as Talia curved a shoulder around him, arms raised like a supplicant. So now I'm going to pick up Itza. I think I pronounced it Itzia before. I'm pretty sure it's Itza. So Itza by Rios de la Luz, and let us hope for better things. Fingers crossed. I got some really terrible footage that I really want to show you when we went on that walk. We saw these parakeets and they weren't even delivering food to their babies, which were in a nest inside a hole in a tree trunk, but they just kept flying to them to talk to them. So just both of them would just peer into the hole and just chat. And it was the cutest thing ever. So here is that terrible footage that you can't really see, but you can hear it. In other news, we have had success with the book and I'm so happy about it. So I have read Itza by Rios de la Luz, and honestly, this is one of my favorite books I've read this year. Sometimes when you read prose that is just ticking all of your boxes, it gives you chest ache. I had the chest ache. This is a novel about a young girl called Marisol and her sister, and they spend some of their time in Mexico with family, some of their time in different American states with family, and it's also about 4 generations. Their generation, their mother, their grandmother, their great-grandmother. But this is quite a short book, so don't worry, it doesn't like stretch across all of those in an equal time frame. It's more about the haunting and the inheritance from each generation to the next. The storyline is just woven together so beautifully and fluidity. I can't say that. Fluidity is one of the main themes in this book. So as the sisters cross between borders, it's about the fluidity of that border, but also how that border stands for other borders in their life and what they're trying to escape. And that might be abuse, it might be certain family relations. The text is also told in different points of view, some in first, some in second, some in third, showing all of these different perspectives of different stories. In doing all of that, it creates this weird magical realism kaleidoscope where you're just having to accept everything that you're reading, let it wash over you, and then afterwards you can try and pull it together into a narrative. But it doesn't have to be anything really concrete. That's kind of the point. Each of these chapters is almost like a ghost hiccuping in your face. It's like, okay, this is what I want to tell you about this particular moment, and I want to show you how that interacts with the past in this certain way. And the language is just stunning. Let me find you an example. This is Marisol being able to detect danger in men that she sees. She saw foggy dark grey around the faces of 2 people. She knew it meant to stay away. There was a man who spoke with her in a dream. There were grey streaks floating around the crown of his head. His tongue was stained with ink. He told her he was going to remove every bone from her body to build an altar for the ghost of the man she will kill in one of her lifetimes. Maybe not this dimension, but it's bound to happen in another. He told her to find relief in this fact. Marisol could feel the bones in her hands separating and then reconnecting. Her wisdom teeth catapulted out of her mouth. So we have all of this imagery of bodies coming apart and then being sewn back together in different ways, made possible by this chorus of voices from women that have come before. This is a love letter to language and family and connections, and how all those things, when snowballed, can be seen as magic, witchcraft. That also, of course, feeds into discussions about intergenerational trauma as well, and content warning for sexual assault. It's told in a not quite explicit way. It is told through magical realism as well, and I think that worked really well. I loved this book. I loved it. If you like experimental texts, then I would highly recommend picking this one up. Oh, great. I'm so glad that we read one that I loved. Okay, on to the next. Hi everyone. I really hoped I would come back to you today and say we are continuing on our upward streak, but no, I have read 2 more books from the 5 that have been recommended to me. So we've still got 1 to go. And these 2, one of them was a DNF and one of them I read the entirety of, but it was a real mixed bag. So let's begin with the mixed bag. So this one was the one by Rosario Ferre. I thought it was Ferre. It's Ferre. And it's called The Youngest Doll. And the cover is amazing. And the first story, which I think was the title story, yes, I adored. And I think the issue with this book is that it is a collection of some of her writings from lots of different books all pulled together. And whenever I write a collection of short stories or a collection of poetry, those stories or poems have been made to coexist next to each other. There is a rhythm and there is some form of narrative, even if the characters in the stories are completely different. They are linked thematically. I always think about the placement of where they go in a book. So to kind of rip bits out of different books and put them together, it's probably not surprising that it didn't really feel like a whole thing. If I was being kind, then let's be kind, because it's nice to be kind. I could argue that this book, being a bit like a chimera, is in keeping with the imagery within the stories, because a lot of this is to do with bodies and with dolls and bringing together different materials and sticking them together and seeing what happens. I do think that dolls in particular was something that they were leaning on quite a lot when bringing these stories together, to kind of make it feel as though they should belong in the same place. And I always like reading stories about dolls, and I especially love it when those stories are dark and talking about female body, talking about agency. I just love all of those things. So when the stories touched on those subjects, I was very happy. The first story, The Youngest Doll, I just loved so much, and I think I may even keep this book just so that I can come back to the story, which is only 5 pages long. It's about an aunt who likes making dolls for the younger female members of the family, and she makes their final doll a life-size doll when they are married. And for her youngest niece, she makes this very extravagant doll, and she does this after she has been bitten by a prawn that now lives in her leg. It's quite absurd. And this doll is something that the niece's husband ends up loving because it's made of such valuable material, and he wants to sell off parts of the doll's body in order to make himself rich. And it's a commentary on women's bodies and the commodity of women's bodies, and I loved all of that, and it has such a creepy element to it as well. The language at the beginning is just delightful. Let me read you the first paragraph. Early in the morning, the maiden aunt had taken her rocking chair out onto the porch facing the cane fields, as she always did whenever she woke up with the urge to make a doll. As a young woman, she had often bathed in the river, but one day when the heavy rains had fed the dragon-tail current, she had a soft feeling of melting snow in the marrow of her bones. So you just want to hug that sentence. With her head nestled among the black rocks' reverberations, she could hear the slamming of salty foam on the beach, mingled with the sound of the waves, as she suddenly thought that her hair had been poured out to sea. There were other stories in this collection that just went, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and would try and cover a whole family saga in the space of a few pages, and that's really not the kind of story that I enjoy. I enjoy it when an author really zooms in on a particular moment and then dissects it, and there's something really magical and purposeful about granting space to a specific event rather than trying to, I guess, be a novel in a short story. I have to say that the contents page, like the titles of the stories, are the things that had intrigued me the most before I picked up this book. They are The Youngest Doll, The Poison Story, The Dust Garden, The Glass Box, The Fox Fur Coat, The Dreamer's Portrait, The House That Vanished, etc. Just all of that just sounds like my cup of tea. And indeed, some of these stories were my cup of tea, but some of them weren't. As I said, a real mixed bag. Then we have Never Have I Ever by Isabel Yap. And this one, I think, is just, it's not mismarketed or anything like that. Excuse me, I just need to sit down on the floor to stop myself getting pins and needles, and also turn you around because the lighting is terrible. It's not a literary fiction short story collection. I don't think it's pretending to be either when I look at the quotes on the back cover. It's definitely more genre based and more heavy on the science fiction, more plot heavy as well than language focused. The imagery in here is great and the ideas are wonderful, but the writing style isn't something that I tend to get along with. It's definitely more for a YA audience. So I think that Jean would really love this. It has body horror in, and it's queer as well. So I think I'm going to send this her way, and I'll link her channel down below in case you want to go check it out. I think this is definitely more her cup of tea than mine. So out of the 4 books that I have read so far, there's only been one that I have really loved, but I'm gonna talk about all of them at the end and really kind of talk about, I suppose, what I was expecting from the recommendations in the first place, and whether or not I think the algorithm has provided what it was promising, also based on the material that it had to hand, because I think there's quite a lot to talk about there. So let me get on to book number 5. But before I do that, I just want to have a quick chat about the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. I'm sure that you have heard me talking about Skillshare on here before because I've been working with them for years. I think that what they do is great. They are an online learning community with thousands and thousands of video classes on anything that you can think of, from writing essays and looking after house plants, interior design, building a website, anything and everything. All of their videos are captioned, and all of their classes are broken down into manageable chunks so you can slot it into whatever your day, your week happens to look like. There's a community tab, and you can go on there and share work that you've been creating if you would like to, but you can also just keep yourself to yourself if that is what you would prefer. I've recommended lots of different classes when I have been talking about Skillshare on this channel before, but the one that I'd like to highlight today is by Ashley C. Ford. It's a writing class, and it's called Personal Writing, Write the Real You, and it's all about creative non-fiction, writing for lots of different outlets as well as writing books. So if that's of interest to you, definitely check it out. But as I said, they have classes on pretty much anything you could think of as well. Skillshare has given me a link, which I've put at the top of the description box down below, and the first 1,000 people to use that link will be given a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so go and check it out. Thank you very much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Okay, I'm gonna go away because of the construction work, but also because I need to go read the final book, which is Shut Up You're Pretty. So once I've read that, I'll come back and talk to you about it, and we can analyze, and we can talk about whether or not these recommendations were, in inverted commas, good, and what we mean by good. We can have a chat about that. And in between doing that, I'm going to show you some of the winter flowers that have been growing and coming up in my mum-in-law's garden, because they're really lovely. So I'll see you in a bit. Oh, you know, I so hoped that we were going to end on a high, but unfortunately we're ending on a meh. So I read Shut Up You're Pretty by Mutonji, and this was just, it was okay. The writing style was definitely something that I prefer more to. I've got them all beside me, never have I ever. But I really feel that this one is mismarketed. It says that it's a short story collection, but it's not. It really has a strong narrative going all the way through, and it's sections from one person's life. She's interacting with the same people all the time, and I suppose it's just sitting in this awkward space between a short story collection, which could allow you to dive into lots of different topics in detail and explore many different things, and a novel where you do have to have something that feels really cohesive. It has the strings of a novel, but some of them feel as though they've been severed. The thing that I love about short story collections is that they give you license to really dive really deeply into one person's life for a fraction of time, and then you zoom out and then you never see that person again, and you're left wondering what happened to them, and you're thinking about all the gaps that you could fill in as the reader. But this doesn't do that, because I feel like it only just dips a little bit below the surface in each story, but you don't have to fill in the gaps because you then follow the same characters. It's not even an interconnected short story because it's the same protagonist. So I don't know, it just felt like a series of photographs from this person's life, and you didn't get what you would get from a short story collection, and you didn't get what you would get from a novel either, or even from an interconnected short story collection. So it's just in this no man's land, and I'm not sure what it was really doing to persuade me to think that this form worked for it. So this, for an experiment, I suppose, if we look at it really quickly, it doesn't appear to have been a very successful experiment. So my favourite by far out of these 5 books was Itza by Rios. In fact, I've actually bought another book of hers because I just think that she's brilliant. My second favourite was The Youngest Doll by Rosario Ferre, but this was definitely like a real hit or miss collection for me. Then I suppose Shut Up You're Pretty, because I felt a bit apathetic towards it, and then Nothing But Blackened Teeth because I didn't like it. But also Never Have I Ever by Isabel is one that I could appreciate, but just recognised it really wasn't for me, and I have found a better home for it. So what do I expect from the recommendations from an algorithm? I mean, it was an experiment. I didn't expect it to go hugely well, but I can see why each of these books was recommended to me. Something that may have let the recommendation system down from a personal point of view is that I don't use StoryGraph or Goodreads, because I've imported my Goodreads data to use star ratings. So it sees what I read, but it actually doesn't know what I like, which is maybe a big flaw, and that is my fault. I assume if I included star ratings on the app, then it would learn from that, but I've always found star ratings quite reductive, and I like talking about why I like or don't like a certain book, so I just use it as a way to record what I've been reading, and then all my reviews are here and then on the radio or in print wherever I happen to be writing book reviews. So maybe the recommendations would have been different if those star ratings had been there. I'm guessing that this was recommended to me maybe because I've read Disha Filyar's The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, but that one I prefer much more to this. I imagine that this one, Nothing But Blackened Teeth, was recommended to me because I read The Haunting of Hill House, but again, I definitely preferred that one. Itza may have been recommended to me because of more experimental magical realism that I've read, like Hiromi Kawakami's People from My Neighborhood and Record of a Night Too Brief, and maybe even things like Houses by Nikki Walshinger, which are all books that I love. Never Have I Ever may have been recommended to me because of reading Kirsty Logan's short story collections, so their tone is very different, but it still explores similar themes, queer, body horror. Then maybe this was recommended to me because of my love of Angela Carter and Lenora Carrington, possibly. I don't know. I will never know because it doesn't tell you why it's recommended certain things. I find it very interesting to think about anyway. It's not groundbreaking to suggest that probably on the whole actual people are going to be better at giving you personalized book recommendations, but this was a really fun experiment and I'm very glad to have discovered Rios de la Luz, and now I can read more of her backlist. I would love to know if you have bought any books ever or got any books out from the library that have been recommended to you via algorithms. I would also love to know what books StoryGraph is recommending to you via your recommendations tab if you use StoryGraph, and if you think those are books that you would actually enjoy. Let me know in a comment down below. Let us speculate. Maybe I'll do this again in the future. Maybe I'll use a different algorithm next time. But as I said, I also want to do videos where I get booksellers and authors to recommend books to me as well. So those will be coming at some point in the future. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. If you like my content and would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, the link is down below. Also linked below is the link to Skillshare. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video. I hope you're all doing as well as you can be doing, and I'm sending lots of love. Bye.